So I went to London, to the London School of Coffee, where I worked with a guy called Jamie Benwell. He's actually the importer for Diedrich Roasters. We use a Diedrich roaster in a roastery. And for 1 week, I've been roasting and cupping and cupping and cupping, and this is pretty much what we've been doing for 1 week. So it's a huge mess. But it was actually the start of our roasting story. And then in the same year, I mean, you know, this was happening in the summer. In the end of the summer, our first order of coffee arrived. And then we got a roaster into our roastery. We have a beautiful roastery inside of our office building. And so we had to set up our roaster in there. Just a joke, this was when we were waiting for a roaster to arrive. We put on our hot top there just for fun. And eventually, here we are. This is our roastery. Yeah, this was our roastery in 2019. I would not dare to show you a picture of it right now, because after you've been roasting coffee for 4 or 5 years, the whole roastery actually becomes a huge laboratory. And you know, there are tables, there are packing tables, there are grinders, there's everything, and it can get quite messy. But bottom line, we went from a hardware manufacturer to a coffee roaster. So what does that bring to sort of hardware manufacturer? We actually, the good thing about it is that we didn't, you know, we didn't say, okay, we need to sell a lot of coffee to be successful. We took it as a marketing project. At the time, the company, I mean, had a little bit of extra money to afford a roastery. So that was not really a problem for us, which was great, especially for me as the head roaster, because you know there was no pressure if you're not going to sell any coffee. So thumbs up for that. And we took it as a marketing project because you know if you got a world-class brewer and you know the world champion brewing on your equipment, what better way to market your hardware than with software, which is coffee. So we started. We actually. We got a first order of coffee from Traboka. It's a distributor of coffee. We had a couple. We always went for a washed Ethiopian, super cool, super funky Colombian natural, and a couple of Brazilians that you need for blends. That's where we started. So then eventually the whole thing evolved, and this was our first coffee product. We didn't start with coffee beans. We started with what you see here on the right. It's a cold brew kit. So we noticed that people are sort of hesitant to making cold brew because it's really messy. So we bought a machine that packs coffee in filter bags, and you can just soak the filter bags in a jar and have the easiest cold brew in the world. So that went pretty well. It was selling for about 4 months before we said, all right, we have now roasted enough coffee. We know what we're doing. We are gonna launch our own roastery with coffee beans, the best coffee beans out there. So this was our packaging. I mean, it took us 4 or 5 months to develop the concept of our bag design. It was based on hands because specialty coffee, it's all handwork. Farmers pick the coffee with their hands. They process them with their hands. There are people that are loading bags of coffee into trucks with hands. There are people in Rotterdam, in Hamburg, again, shipping bags by hand. Then we are roasting everything by hand. We said we should be based on hands. So this was our initial coffee packaging. It was cool. Yeah, that was in March 2020. And in the same week that we planned our huge launch that we were preparing for 4 months, we got notification of a strange virus coming from China that actually spread with hands. Oh fuck! So what are we gonna do? We planned our whole launch with based on hands, touching and everything, and then all the government said, well, you should not touch anymore, and you should wash your hands, and the hands are really off the table right now. So we said, okay, this shit. And then in about 14 days, we saw, okay, this virus is not gonna go away. It said, we're gonna launch it anyway. And this was actually a really good idea at the time, because, we are no business geniuses, but this really, we kind of, I'll say, hit the jackpot, because at the time that we decided to launch the coffee anyway, all the coffee shops in the world were basically closed, and no one could get coffee beans in coffee shops. So actually all sales of, I mean, not all, but most of sales of coffee were made online, which is really good because we were an online first company. So we had a following of, I don't know, 80,000 people on Instagram. And I must say I'm happy that we started with roasting about 4.5 tons of coffee per year the first year, which is really nice for a small roastery, and we haven't dropped below that number since. We have been just growing steadily. So we've been lucky with our roastery, I must say that. And yeah, so when you're in the market for a couple of years, you notice, okay, there are a gazillion roasteries in the world. So how do we differentiate ourselves from the others? So I was not confident enough at the time to say, okay, I'm gonna roast the best coffees in the world. You know, it's easy if you roast a coffee that costs, I don't know, 5 euros per kilo, 10 euros per kilo, 20 euros per kilo, even 50 euros per kilo. That's no problem. But when you get to, you know, when your roasting drum contains, I don't know, 1,000 euros worth of coffee, it can be quite challenging to, you know, I really shouldn't fuck this up. So we said, let's go differently. Let's see if we can create new flavor experiences, but let's not be too, you know, snobby about it. So we came out with, oh shit, I forgot about other products, but we'll go there again. Yeah, because we're based on coffee. So we decided to try barrel-aged coffee. There's a backstory to this. In 2017 or 18, an engineer joined our team. He is from Dolenska, and he lives on a farm. He has a forest, and he distills his own brandy. And he decided he's gonna get espresso packs from the Stowe coffee shop, and he gathered them for a month, and then he actually distilled brandy from coffee, which was fucking amazing. You know, the brandy itself was not really special. It kind of tasted like, you know, there are people who have distilled brandy from stout beer. It's pretty much the same, a bit of creamy, but you know, nothing special. So he said, I'm gonna get some oak barrels and put the brandy in the barrel. Let's see what happens. And at the time, we started, you know, noticing that a lot of roasters in the States were actually making barrel-aged coffee. And we said, okay, now we got a good chance to try this. So we emptied the barrels, we dried them out, and we tried barrel-aged coffee. So this is a short introduction. I'll be really short because, you know, it's late. We all want to go home slowly. Into how we approach barrel-aged coffee, because at the beginning we did it like everybody else, but now we kind of changed the whole process. So here we go. Here is a non-scientific roaster-focused approach on barrel-aged coffee. So here's the thing. Coffee needs to be processed. That's a fact. When farmers pick coffee, they need to process it in different kind of ways. You know, we got the three basics: washed, natural, and honey. And then we got a whole lot of alternative methods that, you know, fermentations, macerations, and what have you. And we said, so why should only farmers be allowed to process coffee? So we will do it. We'll do it as well. We'll do it in the roastery. But we'll do it in a kind of natural way. So we don't want to add, you know, any aromas, artificial sweeteners or whatever. We're gonna try to go, you know, sort of the basic way. So barrel-aged coffee, as I call it, is kind of a cool and natural way to sort of incorporate flavors that you wouldn't get from a bean otherwise. And you know, you can actually influence the flavor of a coffee in different ways. One is through roasting, but you can never actually change the, you know, the core flavor of the beans. So this is what I mean, we're not trying to do that, but enhance it a little bit. And it's a way to make people think you're drinking booze in the morning, because if you've ever tried barrel-aged coffee, you will notice, by the way, does anyone want to try barrel-aged coffee? Yeah? We got it here. Nate, can you help me? You're the man. Yeah, actually, the thing about barrel-aged coffee is that the smell is much more intense than the flavor itself. So if you make it in the morning, people will mostly think that it's you're making booze in the morning. So here we go. We've been making barrel-aged coffees twice a year. We make it in really small batches. We don't want this whole offering to become overwhelming. So usually there's about 30 kilos of coffee per year that we make and offer to our community. And the feedback has been really good. We've been mostly focusing on two types of coffee. One is usually an Ethiopian washed coffee that we barrel aged, and the other is a Brazilian natural. We also had an Ethiopian natural in between. These are the barrels that we are using. They are from Serbia, so it's actually, I don't know if you're all Slovenians here or, yeah. It's Slavonski hrast, a Slavonic oak. It's a typical oak from Serbia. We bought a couple of these barrels and we started barrel aging in them. The result was really good, but you know, this was, remember, we put coffee brandy in them. We dried them out a lot and sort of let the flavors infuse in the coffee. But what we noticed at first is, you know, these coffee barrels are incredibly clumsy to handle. So it's you can see, you know, the small openings of the barrels. That's where you get coffee in and out, and it's I mean, close to impossible to get all the coffee out. You can get it in, but not out. And it's been really inconsistent because you have to be turning the barrels every day to get sort of a consistent flavor. So we said we're going to go with a new approach. So the first thing before we added the new approach I'm talking about, we had to decide what's the point, I mean, let's say, how do you approach barrel aging? Because we've been talking with other roasters, especially US-based roasters, who have been using whiskey barrels a lot. And there are two ways of approaching barrel-aged coffee. One is using a wet barrel and one is using a dry barrel. So if you're using a wet barrel, that means that immediately after the beverage goes out of the barrel, beans go in, which means there's a lot of moisture involved. And beans like that can actually pick up to 15% additional moisture, which can create quite a lot of problems with roasting, because you have to adjust your roast profiles dramatically. And I don't know if anyone's a roaster, but roasting such wet coffee usually results in really crappy coffee. So we said we're gonna try the other way. We're gonna dry out the barrels completely, and we're gonna let, you know, just the sort of the aromas and flavors that are hidden inside the wood, the charred wood. We're gonna let them slowly penetrate into the bean. So what the result is actually much smoother. I mean, if you're tasting it now, this is coffee that was actually barrel aged 3 weeks ago. It was roasted yesterday on an Ikawa. It's a Kenyan washed coffee, and so, you know, the roast profile is not the final profile. It's an Ikawa sample profile. So just to give you an idea what barrel aging can actually do to a coffee. What we try to do is not overdo it, you know, because the problem with all additional coffee processing is that people overdo it. You know, even farmers overdo it. When you got anaerobic fermentation in coffee, and then you could just taste the fermentation. You can't taste the coffee anymore. So we're approaching the additional processing actually just as a little spice on the coffee. So the booze we use, I already told you about that. The important thing about barrel aging is actually charring the oak barrel, which means that you actually burn it with fire. And so you create a sort of layer of charcoal on the inside of the barrel, and that actually creates a much more smoky flavor. In the beginning, we used that a lot with a bit heavier charring, especially for espresso, and which was nice. But you know, flavors change. I mean, tastes change, and we changed a bit as well. So we're not charring now as much. And this is actually the barrel we're using now. You know, I was talking about how we actually changed the method. If in the past we used barrels and we put coffee beans inside the barrel, we have now actually sort of how do you call it, decompose the barrel, and we are now just using oak planks that we char, and we actually soak them in the coffee brandy that I was mentioning. And this is actually how we are doing it. There are just 2 planks inside right now, because the rest are resting in the coffee that's brewing. But this has actually really improved our consistency of the barrel age process, and also it's a lot more predictable, because now I know I need 4 planks for 4 kilos, I need 8 planks for 10 kilos, and I need to put it in 3 weeks for filter coffee and 4 weeks for espresso, and that's it. You know, it takes out all the guesswork. So I was already talking about the time for pre-roasting. As I said, for filter coffee, we usually, I mean, for washed coffees, we soak the planks in the coffee for 3 weeks. For espresso, we use 4 weeks, because we need a bit stronger flavor for espresso-based coffees. As we learned that from feedback from our customers, people who use barrel-aged coffee for espresso mostly drink it with milk, and there you need a bit stronger flavor, because milk is actually really aggressive as a flavor sort of killer. And if you wanna mix it well with milk, you need to create the flavor a bit stronger, and also the coffee itself has more body, and everything blends together, you know, in a nice sort of Irish coffee-ish morning drink. And then we did a lot of research about how this coffee actually behaves after roasting, which was really strange, because just a couple of weeks ago, I found a bag of barrel-aged coffee in my drawer in the kitchen that was 1.5 years old, and I said, okay, let's try it. And the result is that the flavor of coffee itself, it was a washed Ethiopian, Suke Kuto, from the Guji region. The coffee itself had very little, intrinsic flavor that used to have. It was a great coffee, but what remained was extreme sweetness from the brandy. It was not sweetness from the bean, but from the brandy. So what I did, it was a bit of research, and I actually monitored a batch of barrel-aged coffee for 2 months after roasting. I wanted to draw a graph, but I didn't. Sorry. So I'm just gonna explain what's happening with the coffee. So immediately after roasting, the coffee is pretty flat, which is what you're tasting now, because it was roasted last evening. So this was too fresh. But I sadly, barrel-aged coffee, when we put it on the market, it usually sells out immediately, because they're really, really, really small batches. I mean, we roast usually 4 kilos at once, and we create pre-orders for that, and we don't have any coffee left. So what happens is after 1 week, the coffee starts developing some really, really sweet flavors. So the coffee becomes sweeter and sweeter, and you get less and less. At the beginning, the coffee is really boozy. You can really taste the brandy in it, but mind you, the coffee has no alcohol in it as it is, because in the wood itself, all the alcohol evaporates. So we even tested that, and there was no alcohol inside, which is strange. But after a week, the coffee becomes really sweet, and with the brandy aftertaste. And then after after, let's say, each week after that, actually the sweetness remains while the intensity of the brandy flavor actually starts dropping. So what you get from barrel-aged coffee after, let's say, a month and a half or 2 months is ridiculously sweet coffee, which was really fun for me to discover. Because, and as I mentioned, I'm not a scientist. I just notice what's happening with the coffee. So it's a good way to test. You know, leave a couple of grams of barrel-aged coffee for a month and a half or 2 months and brew it and see what happens, because the results are really, really strange. Okay, so barrel-aged coffee is, you know, I won't say it's the core of our business, but it's one part of the business that's sort of a spice of our roastery. People know us for it, and we started playing with how we could, you know, let's say expand our offering of kind of flavored coffees. And so three beverages come in mind immediately. One is gin, one is whiskey, and one is rum. You can get barrels for whiskey and rum easily, and we're gonna do that. And for gin, we didn't want to put alcohol in it. We just tried it with you know, the herbs and spices that usually go into the production of gin. I tested 4 different coffees with those herbs. I tried them for after 1 week of, you know, I closed the coffee beans with the herbs in a closed bag with a valve. I tried them after 1 week, after 2 weeks, after 3 weeks, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and 4 weeks after that, and I decided that this is definitely not the way to go. Gin and coffee just don't fit together somehow. I mean, that's probably the most logical reason why espresso martinis are not made with gin but with vodka. So what I want to do right now is actually try a rum barrel. I'm kind of looking for someone to provide me a rum barrel that I can then take apart and test what happens. But I'm happy to say that we will be working with a local distillery in Ljubljana. It's called Broken Bones. They actually are most known for their gin, but they also make their own whiskey, which is kind of an awarded whiskey. And for this holiday season, actually next week, we are starting with barrel aging coffee in their whiskey barrel. So the result will be ready in sort of end of October, beginning of November. So just in time for the holiday season, you'll be able to try sort of a local cooperation of 2 Ljubljana companies and hopefully really, really tasty coffee. So this is actually the end of what I wanted to tell you. So if you have any questions about barrel-aged coffee, I might have, you know, left out a couple of the important things, but you know, that's why we have questions. So if you have any questions, let me know. Otherwise, we can go back down and have some more great coffee. Yeah.
Have you tried barrels from some stout or Guinness or something like that?
No, but I will try them. Yeah, that's a good point. I want to try wine barrels. Yeah. There are roasters who have been doing it. I've tried one coffee that's been actually aged in wine barrels, but the thing is, it takes a lot more time for any, you know, true flavor to develop, because I guess distilled beverages are a bit more aggressive in sort of, you know, infusing into the coffee bean itself.
Still there, but about some craft beers.
I might try that. Yeah. I haven't really thought about it. I didn't know they actually used wood barrels for beer. Yeah, might try that. Good idea. Thanks. Any more questions? Well, if not, I guess we can call this the end of the lecture season at the Ljubljana Coffee Festival. Thank you very much, and enjoy the rest of the show.